It's May the 4th. Republicans have a new hope of repealing Obamacare. But Colorado's GOP has a rogue one who directly defied the president.
I think he was gracious about that and understood that.
It's a trap that snared a Coloradan in South America, the ambush and his escape. Fear is the path to the dark side, and a Denverite admits fear got the best of him when someone new came to the neighborhood. These students' hydrogen car is named the best in the Americas. Great, kid. Don't get cocky. Stay with us for next. You're my only hope. No one should be surprised that House Republicans voted today to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. They've been taking symbolic votes like that for years. Anyone who says they know exactly how this could impact Colorado is either trying to scare you or trying to sell you, because this whole plan is just going to be rewritten in the Senate. What's telling today is which Colorado Republicans wanted to literally stand with President Trump and which one refused his deal. If you weren't glued to C-SPAN today like us nerds, here's how your Colorado delegation voted on the new health care plan. No surprise, all 3 Democrats voted no. 3 of our Republican congressmen voted yes. But Mike Kaufman was one of 20 Republicans in the House to vote no. You'll hear from him in a minute.
We're going to get this passed through the Senate. I feel so confident.
That might be premature exultation. The Senate's talking about completely rewriting the plan. But the president still celebrated at the White House with the Republicans who wanted to be photographed with him on this historic and contentious day. Hey, look, it's Congressman Doug Lamborn from Colorado Springs, prime TV location right behind the president. You might see that in his Republican primary ads. No sign of Scott Tipton, who represents the Western Slope. His spokesman said he had prior commitments. We also couldn't find Ken Buck in the crowd. His team didn't respond to us, and, well, we didn't feel like flying all the way back to D.C. again to try and get a comment. Congressman Kaufman was in this studio last month saying that he just could not back a plan that he felt gutted health care for people with pre-existing conditions. Right after his no vote today, he told me that he couldn't get Republican leadership to agree.
I was concerned about pre-existing conditions and certainly tried to work with leadership on changes, but was not successful. Certainly hope that there's going to be a lot of work on this bill in the Senate. It clearly is not a perfect bill by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't vote for it. But the fact is that we do have problems that we need to take care of.
President Trump spoke with you personally, trying to convince you to vote for his health care plan. How did President Trump take it when you told him that he didn't have your vote?
I described to the president that there was a problem with a bill, that I was insisting on language to tighten it up concerning pre-existing conditions in the MacArthur Amendment. He certainly acknowledged that and certainly wanted to close. And I said, well, wait, Mr. President, I need this language for my vote. It's important to me.
I asked Congressman Kaufman if the chorus of concern that he's heard from constituents in the Aurora area changed his mind on health care. He said that he's heard from people on all sides of the issue, but he acknowledged that his recent in-person town hall, where person after person told their personal health care stories, that helped to put a face on the issue. One of Denver's biggest drug busts in years went down last night and today in 5 Points, where a gang, whose name doesn't deserve more notoriety here, was dealing cocaine as much in the open as anything that we've showed you along Cherry Creek. Our Whitney Wild explains the neighborhood cleanup.
A lot of the drug deals happened at the 26th and Welton RTD station, some of it even captured on camera. And the audacity of that highlights the reality of this case. 5 Points turned into an open-air drug market, an insult to the people who live here. Law enforcement today said they wanted to give this neighborhood back to the people who live here, who don't want to walk down to the park or walk down the street and watch people use or sell drugs. Law enforcement has 35 people in custody in this case. They're looking for 17 others. In Denver, for next, Whitney Wild.
Listen, you can expect us to praise police when they do good, criticize them when they do wrong, but at all times to not endanger their safety. Face it, this is why they hate us, people. And when I say they, I don't mean police officers, I mean the general public, who have a pretty fair expectation that we will not add to the danger faced by the people who protect us. Aurora police called out the media this morning for something that we try here very hard to avoid, showing officers' positions live on the air while they are in a dangerous situation. It's during a homicide investigation at the Riviera Motel, Colfax and Beeler. I'd hope the Colorado media would have learned that lesson long ago, and I don't think that the issue was 9 News journalists today, but mistakes happen. Just want you and the public to know that we understand why it's such a serious issue. The man who shaped marijuana legislation for the state of Colorado and who is leaving his government job today went to Capitol Hill this week. Andrew Freeman told Congress to move past debating whether they should legalize marijuana.
You're not moving anybody's minds that way, and so I challenge everybody to flip it all on its head and say, what is it you're actually trying to achieve? And plus, a quarter of America now lives in a state with recreational marijuana, so regardless of where you sit on it, we have to figure it out for that quarter of America.
Democratic Congressman from Boulder, Jared Polis, has a cannabis caucus, and I think they could meet in a small room. I think there's 4 of them at this point. So that means that there's a lot of members of Congress who are in states where people want legal marijuana, but they're not willing to have their name anywhere near it. How does that change?
Well, I think, first of all, when it gets up and running in a couple of these states and the problems are in their backyard, when you don't get banking or you need access to research so that you know what CBD oils do for little kids, that will change pretty quickly. And it's going to be what we saw here in Colorado, which was at first it was a very hands-off issue, and now I would say that every legislator knows how to talk about this at length.
What do you make of some of the rumblings coming out of President Trump's Justice Department? Jeff Sessions talking about cracking down on recreational, if not medical, marijuana.
Well, I think that we definitely have an attorney general who's very upset about what's going on. I think he also has a long list of things he's upset about, and this falls a little further down that list for him.
Freeman told me if he could redo legalization here, he would get better pre-legalization stats on things like impaired driving and the number of high school suspensions related to marijuana. There's no going back to get those numbers now, and he said that we'd have a better idea of the true impact of legalization if we had them. Our full conversation is in the next section on 9news.com. A kayaker from Greeley was in South America, Colombia, 500 miles down the Apapores River when he was confronted by men with guns. Ben Stokesbury and 4 of his friends were kidnapped by FARC rebels and held for 3 days. He's now home safe and telling his story to Next.
It's unknown and has been really unnavigated. From what I think it was almost impossible to know until we actually got into the area. We were really under the impression that if we were to have encounters, that it would happen in the upper portion of the river. Coming into the lower portion of the river, it almost seemed like that the FARC had all but abandoned the area and had, basically left their posts and their checkpoints, and that we had come in during the right time, and that we wouldn't have any troubles going downstream. Inherently there are risks, and in this particular case, running into this FARC element was one of them. So all of a sudden this motorboat comes zipping up. There's a lady sitting in the middle and 2 guys on either end. As I got closer, I saw the guns, and I knew exactly who they are. At that point, I'm in a kayak. There's no avoiding this encounter at this point. We were basically just told to get all our things together, and that we were being taken to the camp. They wanted us to wait with them while they waited for advice from their superiors. And so that's when we started to actually use our GPS devices to make contact and let our emergency contacts in both Colombia and here in the States know that something was up. We were being taken against our will by this armed rebel group. They knew that we had, cash. They knew, about our documents. We had other things that could have been valuable to them. So in that way, I guess they were taking what they thought might be harmful to them, and not necessarily a straight up robbery, but we did have to leave all of our cameras there, and we were released. So yeah, that was the major thing, is just getting out of there with everybody, and everybody was in good shape. And then from there, the decision was made to basically evac and get out of that village as quickly as possible. And I think there wasn't really another reasonable decision to make.
Ben and his friends escaped the rebel camp and paddled to a village where a plane sent by the U.S. government was waiting. Ben just got back to the States last night. You heard him say that he had to turn over his cameras, but he saved a couple of memory cards, snuck them out, and that's how we were able to see photos of the trip where he was kidnapped. Colorado's police shootings illustrated in a new way on the pages of a comic book. Suspicion turns neighbor against neighbor in Denver for no good reason.
Pay attention when you're seeing something that doesn't seem right, but pay attention when you see something that is very much right.
And that time we ruined the governor's press conference by asking about Star Wars. Next.
Like many people, I can still remember the exact place I was, the theater, within a couple days when I saw the original Star Wars. And, you know, it was so different than any other cinematic, and I was crazy about films when I was in high school and college. But I don't know May 4. I'm obviously out of the loop. What am I missing? May 4th. Oh God, it's so bad, and I'm so dense.
I think you actually had a Facebook post about it.
Yeah, well, I missed it.
That was 1 year ago today when our next team, working secretly to prepare a new show, managed to slip in a Star Wars question at the governor's very serious press conference. 1 year later, we are pretty sure that all the other reporters are still rolling their eyes at Next, and Steve Steger wants me to admit that I still have not seen a single Star Wars movie.
And then there's people like me who keep small child-sized Star Wars lightsabers in their purses for their children. That's a whole other story we'll talk about later. You can also check my Facebook page out for that one. Out across the East Coast is really the only place where we're seeing weather across the country today. They are expected to see some heavy rain continue there, and it'll push up the East Coast and offshore over the next 24 to 48 hours. In its wake, we still have several warnings, including flood warnings for some very rain-soaked areas across parts of Missouri. They're watching river levels there very, very closely to see if they rise more than expected over the next couple of days. Our weather, of course, very calm. We've got some very dry air in place. We're warmer tomorrow than we were today. 79 will be our high on Friday. We're in the 80s over the weekend, but keep an eye to the sky because we do have a chance for some isolated showers and thunderstorms late in the day, both Saturday and Sunday. A better chance for rain shows up next week. Tuesday and Wednesday, we're tracking a bigger system that will bring scattered showers and storms back here to the Front Range, and it's going to cool us off a little bit as well. But Kyle, I don't think anybody's complaining about this weekend.
No, I don't think so. You just got a new nickname. Becky with the good hair becomes Becky with the lightsaber. How about that? Yes. All right, thank you much. You know, as much as we are intrigued by people who hold strong opinions, and we share plenty of those here on Next, we're especially interested in people who change their views. Tonight, we meet a guy named Kyle who is sharing his initial impression and his radical reconsideration.
There was one day when I was home from work, midday on a weekday, and sitting on the porch reading, and a pickup truck came down the alley. It had tinted windows. I couldn't see who was inside. It was moving so slow. It was this alley behind me, and then it continued. It just kind of creeped me out. So then when I saw it again the other day, you know, my heart started racing. In my mind, he was waiting for me to come home. Like, I don't know what I thought he was doing exactly, but in that frame of mind, it was like almost everything I was seeing was corroborating this narrative in my head. You know, I was getting very amped up because in my mind, I was approaching some sort of altercation. When I first met the guy, I said, "Hey, what's up?" And he explained to me that, you know, I work at a restaurant down the street. I'm on my break. When he explained that to me, it just like clicked. Oh, like, you just probably had a few more minutes and you were ready to go back to work. The reason that this experience was meaningful to me was pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Be suspicious of your own suspicion, and don't beat yourself up about being suspicious, but if given opportunity, let your suspicion be proven wrong.
Next is a conversation about anything that you think needs discussing. You can reach us anytime. Next at 9news.com is the email, or get our attention with the hashtag HeyNext. Colorado's confessions continue with an airline employee who needs you to take a seat and listen. Less is more, and it's why Wheat Ridge students beat everyone with their car. And the Broncos' new Ring of Famer has some constructive coaching for next. Yesterday's news is creating tomorrow's comic books. A writer in Denver is taking on the serious, very real issue of police shootings. A new graphic novel, The Burning Metronome. R. Allen Brooks worked alongside a designer from Longmont, Matt Strackbine.
Comics have always been socially active. Using that forum of comics is sort of an accessible way into these issues for people who might not be aware of them or who might be on one side and not be able to hear the other side. I was thinking about just human conflict in general. I feel like at the root of many conflicts, particularly this thing with police brutality, both sides, is sort of a failure to recognize the humanity of the people on the other side. When you find the humanity in the story, when you find out like what a person, a character is thinking or what they believe, then a lot of times they kind of lead you through it.
That comic is about police shootings is the first in a series of 5 issues that will examine different types of human conflict. You'll see it in local comic book stores in the next few weeks. Our ongoing search for the smartest kids in Colorado led us to Wheat Ridge High School, and that is where you will find the 13 members of that school's STEM team, science, technology, engineering, math. They entered a hydrogen fuel cell car in an intercontinental competition in Detroit, the Shell Eco Marathon. They designed, built, tested, and drove that car. The car passed inspections. It went for a run on a track and then out for the real thing. They were trying to see how little fuel it could use, and the Wheat Ridge team took first place, used the least fuel. A trophy, a $3,000 check for the STEM program, and a little shout out on the news. Our search continues for students who are defying expectations, shattering stereotypes. Give us a heads up if you know some. Email next@9news.com or use the hashtag #HeyNext. The bridesmaids who confessed their reservations about starring in a parade of weddings prompted a lot of you to share your own confessions. Today we hear the words of Cassandra, a Next viewer, an airline employee.
My complaint about being an airline employee is that it seems everyone's brain leaves when they walk in the airport door. Also, people have no sense of personal space or manners. Such as, you'll be in the middle of helping someone, and a person will come up and ask a question like they're more important than the person that you are currently helping. Also, everything is your fault, even if you have no control over it, like the weather. Sometimes it's a lose-lose job, but it also has its perks. My confession as an airline employee.
Keep your confessions coming. Next, it's a sign for those of us who love dogs. And our feedback this evening comes from the home of a new Broncos Ring of Famer. Next. It's a sign of how you can live your best life in the Colorado outdoors. It reads, "These trails are best enjoyed with dogs." Then the fine print. I recommend that every 2 people have at least 60 pounds of dogs, with each individual dog being at least 20 pounds. And if they are good dogs, no leash is necessary. That is a great sign. Bill Arbanowski spotted it at the trailhead of the Buena Vista Trail System near a bridge over the Arkansas River. Keep the signs you see coming. Email next@9news.com or hashtag #HeyNext. Former Denver Broncos coach Red Miller was selected to the team's Ring of Fame today. The 32nd person selected and only the 2nd coach. Miller was a big deal. He helped the team to its first Super Bowl. So congratulations, coach. And we happen to know that Next is occasionally viewed in the Miller household because they emailed me a while back to criticize my, quote, obviously liberal bent. I responded that it was an honor to be criticized by the coach, Red Miller of the Denver Broncos, and his wonderful wife, Nan, wrote back to say, quote, as a coach, he would never criticize you. He would only coach you. Feel fortunate to be coached by the legend. We'll see you next time.